right. Today we have with us Miss Libby Taylor. Hey, Libby.
Hello.
Libby is the founder of School Up Wake, and she has so much helpful knowledge for parents of school-aged kids in Wake County. So what we are going to do today is talk to her about school choice and how to navigate picking your child's school or multiple children. Maybe it's different schools for multiple kids. Who knows? But Libby has all the information. So thank you for joining us.
Sure. Thank you for having me. This is great.
Yes. Well, so tell us kind of your 3 to 5 sentence, like who are you? What do you do? Tell us about your
Sure.
business.
Okay, sure. Because this is probably completely new to so many people, even though there are more of me out there. So, the term I use for what I do is school selection consulting. And that's a term that I've heard other places. There are lots of people who do this in bigger cities like New York and LA. And what we do is a little like being a realtor, but for schools. So we help families kind of navigate all these options, all this school choice. And I do that by not only doing different talks at places like preschools where people are just figuring this out for young kids, or public talks for people who have older kids. And then I kind of help them figure out what are your options, what are all these things? What are magnet schools and charter schools? And how do I pick the right private school? All that kind of stuff. And I also sit down with families and I help them figure out what their family goals are and what they're looking for in a school, and then help them navigate the process and go through it. So we kind of figure out, sometimes we're doing applications to all of these schools because we want to see where we get in and where we get placement. And sometimes it's just helping people kind of narrow down a few choices that they have, and kind of weed out some schools that don't fit what they're looking for. So it's
Mm,
different for every family. But I help families of all different levels, from kindergarten all the way through high school, kind of figure out what school fits them best. And that I kind of just came into it from hearing about other people who do this in other areas. My background is education. I have a master's in education and I did teach for a while. And I just feel like we have so many options here, and it's too much for parents,
right.
particularly working parents. It's way too much and too much time. And so what I try to do is just simplify it for them and give the right resources and the right information.
Yes, because the working parents or any parent really, you could make, I could make a full-time job out of trying to find the perfect school or the right fit. Maybe no.
I did make a full-time job out of
And
finding the right school for kids. That's exactly right. And there's no need to reinvent the wheel. I collect all the information and I talk to everybody and I tour schools and I, follow everything that's happening in schools, so that other parents don't have to do it and feel kind of like they're drowning in information on one of the most important decisions for their family.
I love that. It takes so much pressure off of parents to put
Yeah.
to just trust you with that. And that's so great. So you tell us a little bit. So you came from public education, right? So you have this background and you're now using that knowledge to benefit
Yeah.
families.
Yeah, and I actually have a background working in nonprofits with schools too, both here and across the country. So I've been able to, be around charter schools quite a bit. I taught in the public schools here, and I have kids in the schools here. So I use all of that, and then I just like it's just kind of my job to do this every year. So I tour as many schools as will let me come in. Or during COVID, I go to all their information sessions
Yeah.
and do it that way. And just follow all the research and which principal's moving where and all that kind of good stuff, all the news about schools, and try to collect all that and curate all that for parents to make their life easier. We
Oh,
all need
absolutely.
our lives to be easier.
So, oh yes, yes, everybody wants that. That's such valuable information for such an important thing, the life of a child or children coming up. So I know I have right now they are 6 and 9, I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. And I know when my 9-year-old was starting school a while back, he's in the kindergarten, and my little girl just recently finished kindergarten. I know kindergarten to be one of those
Yeah.
milestone moments where you go, where am I going to send my kid to school next year? Right.
Yeah,
You start
big
thinking,
deal.
thinking early on, and it feels like a very big decision because
Yeah.
you want to pick what's right for your child, for your family, and that can even look different between kids. And so, what are there other milestone moments? I'm not there yet, and we're still just at 9 years old, right? But are there other milestone moments where parents might want to consider like this conversation about school choices?
Yeah, I do work with all those ages. I think this school choice, all these options make people feel like kindergarten is high stakes. And so I do like to reassure people that it's not, it's still
Right,
just kindergarten.
right. They're going to be fine.
Um, and you know what, if you go somewhere and you don't love it, you still have a lot of other options and you can switch. But so I do heavily incoming grade levels. So that is typically here, kindergarten going into sixth grade and going into ninth grade, because that's when you're kind of picking the next school, unless you're in a school that encompasses more grades than is traditional in our traditional schools. Um, but I also, work a lot. Often people after third grade, I don't know if that's kind of like a big transition time, I think, for kids. You have a kid that age, so like there's kind of a big transition there. And sometimes families do feel like they want to switch schools at that point. So that just is kind of a thing that typically happens. But I do often work with people at that level who want to, switch somewhere and hopefully stay there for quite a long amount of time. But yeah, that's kind of incoming grade levels are times when you're thinking about what's the next school that I'm going to be picking. And then in the middle too, if you just haven't found what you're looking for, don't be afraid to go out and find it. We can do that at any grade level.
Okay, well, that's helpful information. Um, and like we've been saying kind of throughout this, there's so many good schools in Wake County. And it can be
Yeah.
very overwhelming, especially for parents maybe moving here from other states where like they've
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
had school choices or entering kindergarten where this is just all entirely new. Are there like important first steps to do when looking at a school or like a most important factors as you're kind of evaluating options?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think what school choice does here, whether you're used to it or it's new for you, I think it makes people feel like there's an it school to get into.
Mhm.
And there's gossip around what schools are the best schools. And it just makes people feel like there's a lot of pressure. And the truth is that there's not one best school or one it school. There's a lot of different schools that fit different families.
Right.
So I think the first step to do is to sit down with your partner, your spouse, your whole family, if the kids are of age, and talk about your goals and write those down. So have a place to write down what's most important to you. Is it having a small school with a nurturing environment? Is it having a foreign language? Is it having a strong arts or music program or even a faith-based culture at your school? And figure out what's most important to you, because that will help you sort of weed through all that gossip and all the marketing that happens when you go on school tours, because they're going to compete for you. And I think when you can write those things down and stay true to those, even as you start doing the research, that can really help you find the school that's best fit for your family, and not just kind of what everyone else is talking about. And I do always mention, I think people shy away from this idea of kind of community and location. Like that can be a goal, that can be your family's goal. That having strong community and making friends in the neighborhood that your kids are then going to grow up with, and finding that neighborhood schools, that could be one of your biggest goals. That's important too.
Absolutely.
And just going from there, kind of starting with the goals and then doing the research to find what's best.
I love that because it keeps you in your lane, right?
Yeah,
There's so much talk
exactly.
comparison these days and kind of
Yep.
comparing my family to this family or my whatever to your whatever. And if
Yeah,
you write it down and say these are our priorities, that's so helpful to keep you, it seems like it'll be so helpful to keep you on track.
I think so. And stay confident in what you're looking for, because I've seen two different families go tour the same school and have a totally different impression. One family thinks like, oh, this is so creative and eclectic and energized. And then another family goes in and says, oh, it was so messy and chaotic. And So when you have that written down and you're laser focused on that, I think it can help drown out the other voices and help you stay confident in what you're looking for. And
Yeah.
that helps make the best fit for your students.
That's such a good point. And I love hearing you say that too, because I'm just, as you're talking, I'm relating it to my own life in my mind, because I know when we started looking at schools, my husband and I went to two different kind of similar
Yeah.
schools, but one was more like regimented, and my husband is very type A. So he was
Yeah.
like, this is great.
This is
I am
great.
I am not type A. And so we went to look at this other school. They're similar in how they function, but this other school was more like, it's a little looser, a little more
Yeah.
fun. And I was like, this is great. Right. So even within the family,
Exactly.
right. It was
That's
like,
exactly true. And I see that a lot. I see even sometimes like polar opposites. Like I came from a really small private school and my spouse came from, this really big public school. I see that and I sit down with families and we kind of, okay, where can we maybe land in the
right
middle?
in the middle. Yeah.
Because that exists too, right? It's all out there. And I think it's funny to watch people kind of figure out like, oh my gosh, you liked that. I didn't like that at all. And I think that's the kind of conversation that's important
Yes.
and not just people saying like, "Oh, you got to go to this school. It's the best
And
school."
isn't that what makes the world go
I like
round?
to fault them.
All of these differences, that's what makes the world interesting, right? So
Yes, absolutely.
yes. Well, so let's talk about resources. So there are there's so much going on between magnet schools and private schools and public schools and fill in the blanks.
Yep.
There's so much going on that it would be, for me as a parent, it's overwhelming to try and keep up. If I did want to switch schools, we love our school, but like if I did want to switch schools, it would be
Yep.
very overwhelming for me to kind of keep up with what's current and in the world of school choice. So how can people, are there resources to help people with that? Talk about that for a minute.
Yep, sure. So you kind of have a couple big chunks, right? You've got Wake County Public Schools, and there you've got calendar options, you've got magnet options, you've got traditional options. A lot of people don't know this, but you can actually transfer any school that's open to transfer. You can put in for a transfer there. And then you've got charter schools, and then you've got independent or private schools. So you've got all these options. And one of the things I found was how difficult it was to go to all these different websites. So I try to pull as much of that as I can to my resource page on my website and kind of curate all that information. So it just links out to all these different places, but it collects them all together. So I have a resource page where I'm kind of doing that. I do think Wake County Magnets program is amazing, and the same people actually handle calendar options, like if you want to switch to your year-round option, and they handle your magnet schools, and they're involved in transfers as well. So if you go to Wake County's website under their magnets program or follow Wake County Magnet Schools on social media, they do a great job of constantly putting out up-to-date information. In fact, they are even kind enough to sit down with me every fall and make sure that I have all the right information on my website and in my talks. So I definitely encourage you to follow them because that's a big chunk of our schools. And then I try to kind of collect for charter schools and independent schools what I can all on that resource page because those each have their individual websites. And so information about changes in the schools or expansions or leadership, that's all in their individual pages. So I do have some places where I collect all these are all the charter schools and kind of here's the map and here's the links to them and what they're all about. So that would be a great place to start is just the resource page where you can then find the information to then go off to all the other sectors.
I love that because as a not type A person, there are people in the world that would take the time and sit down and look through.
Oh, make the spreadsheet? Yes.
Yeah, they would make a beautiful
Yes.
spreadsheet. I am not that person, so
Yeah.
I love
I have a
knowing
lot of clients who come to me with the full spreadsheet and I'm like, wow, that's
that, that,
amazing.
that
That
is
takes
that
a
is
lot of time.
so it's good to know that you have that at my fingertips, the click of a button if I need.
I do. I love a good spreadsheet. I have every spreadsheet you could want.
That's great. So long story short, there are lots of options.
Yep,
There's no wrong option. It's just what's right for your family. I'm
absolutely.
recapping here. And then there are resources available to parents who are interested in learning more about it. How can somebody connect with you if they wanted to talk to you more deeply about school selection.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a big reason I do this. Like, I want parents to know there's help. You don't have to do this alone. There's help out there, whether it's just one of my talks where you can kind of get all organized, or you want more and you want to sit down with me and kind of have me walk you through all of it. Either one, all my information is on the website, and there's a contact form as well. So people can contact me that way and we can set something up anytime that kind of works for the family, and we can sit down together. And I do like to mention the timeline too, because um, people always ask me, like, when should I be doing this? And you kind of always want to think the fall before they're going to the next grade level, right? So it's the fall that your kids are in pre-K 4, and it's the fall that your kids are in 5th grade, and then the fall that they're in 8th grade when you're looking at that next level, because all of these things kind of happen fall through the winter. Um,
Helpful to
the
know.
little timeline. Yeah, yeah. And that's when you'll find school tours, which are really important, and like magnet school fairs that are really important, where you can get to know a lot of different schools together. And hopefully these things will be in person next fall coming up and into the future, hopefully, right? Those are all really important. But yeah, and it's never too early to contact me either. I mean, I have lots of people who call me when their kids are, 2 and 3, and they're like, we want to figure this out, or we want to move, and we need to know where to move. All these, there's nothing I don't help with, and there's no too early.
Oh,
Whatever makes it easier on people.
that is so, I feel like, so this audience that's watching this right now is this audience of mostly working moms that have this really limited time, high
Yeah,
valuable time, right? And to sit down and do all this ourselves it's a time commitment, but
right.
know that it exists, and you,
Yeah.
like somebody like you exists to help with all of that stuff. And it
You
seems
don't
like
have to
important.
reinvent the wheel.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. I
I've
love
got it. I've got it. I can make your life a lot easier.
and that's what your website is again.
Okay, the website is schoolupwake.com.
Okay.
And there is a contact me page, or you can just email me directly, which is libbygtaylor@gmail.com.
Okay.
And all of that is on the website. So schoolupwake.com.
Wake.com. Okay. Cool.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining. Is there anything else you want to share?
I would love to share one thing I just published, which is a resource for moms, no matter what age your kids are. And that is called an open seat report. And
Okay.
so whether you're looking for a new school or you're at a transition time, sometimes it's really, like we just said, it's really hard to figure out where is their availability. And everyone will make you feel like, oh, you're too late to do charters or private schools or all these things. But there's always tricks. And so I'm collecting on that open seat report, which is on my website, all the schools that have availability. So whether they're private schools and they can still take more applicants, or whether they're charter schools, maybe they're expanding, or maybe they just have one grade level that isn't full and they can take more people. So I'm collecting all that in one spot to try to help families who are kind of navigating that off the timeline. So that'll be up there all summer, and hopefully every summer from now on, so people can kind of go to the open seat report and see, what schools still have spots and what's near me. I kind of do it by area or township.
So helpful. That is, I mean,
Really?
is I'm not going to take the time to call 15 different schools to see what's open,
No,
but you
no,
will. That's great.
no, but I did.
That is wonderful. Well, thank you so, so much for sharing this helpful information and just for making yourself available to parents for these important decisions. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know you work with so many working moms who just need more free time, so we can help them with
Yes, free time is good. It's good.
yeah.
Well, free up some brain space too. It's important.
Right, right.
All right, Libby. Well, thank you. Have a great
Thank you.
afternoon.
Thank you.